The Displaced by Manuel Ortega Abis. Chapter 1. The Fragmentation. In the heart of an infinite void, there stood a library that was not a library. It was a part of space bound by neither walls nor shelves, nor by the constraints of linearity. The books there floated, suspended in the air, untethered and untouchable, unless they chose otherwise. Each tome contained a universe, a life, a story, yet they all sang the same refrain. To be ready is to read and to be read. To be in place, to be in many places. Lumina was a seeker, one of the few mortals chosen to walk among the narratives. She had been summoned to the library, if one could call the sudden awakening within its orbitless expanse a summoning. Her existence there felt like a contradiction, solid yet ethereal, aware yet fragmented. She had no memory of her life before, only the lingering sense that she had come here for answers. "You have brought me here, why?" Lumina asked the silence. Her voice rippled through the void, bending light and time, but no answer came. Instead, a book drifted toward her. Its cover shimmered like liquid mercury, reflecting her own confused face back at her. She reached out, and the book allowed itself to be touched. When she opened it, she didn't see words, but visions. An ocean stretched before her, endless and turbulent. In the distance, there was a solitary figure standing on the water's surface, looking directly at her. Without warning, the vision pulled her in.
Chapter 2. The Readership. Lumina found herself alighting a vessel called the Readership onto the waters before her. Now she was standing on the ocean. The water beneath her feet was firm yet undulating, as though she was walking on the back of a restless giant. The figure from the vision was now just a few steps away. It was a man, though his features shifted, young and old, joyous and sorrowful, familiar and alien. "You are the reader," he said, his voice a symphony of tones. "And I am the reed." "What does that mean?" Lumina asked. "It means you are here to learn what it means to be displaced," he replied. "To read and to be read. To place yourself in every place, yet belong to none." Before Lumina could question any further, the ocean beneath her transformed into a desert, the waves collapsing into dunes. The man was gone, but his voice lingered, echoing through the air. "Begin."
Chapter 3. Placement, Displacement. The desert was not barren. It was populated by doors, standing upright with no walls or frames to hold them. Each door was unique, some were ornate with gilded carvings, others simple and weathered. Lumina approached one and placed her hand on the knob. The door opened, she walked in, and closed the door behind her. Instantly, she was thrust into a bustling city. The streets were alive with people, but none of them saw her. She walked among them, observing them as though she were a ghost. One man stood out. He carried a book identical to the one Lumina had opened in the library. She tried to call out to him, but her voice made no sound. Instead, she felt the book in her own hands begin to hum.
She opened it again, and this time she saw herself, not in the library, but in the very same city she now stood in. She was sitting on a bench, reading the same book. The realization struck her. She was both the observer and the observed, the reader and the read. The man with the book looked up, meeting her gaze. For a brief moment, he seemed to see her, and in that moment, Lumina felt herself split. She was on the bench, reading, and on the street, watching. The two versions of her locked eyes, and the world fractured. Chapter 4. To be in place. Lumina awoke back in the library, or so she thought. The infinite void now swirled with fragments of every place she had been, the ocean, the desert, the city. The books floated around her, and she realized that they were no longer sealed. Their contents spilled out into the space, creating worlds and timelines that overlapped and intertwined. The man from the ocean appeared again, his form stabilizing into something more constant. "To be ready," he said, "is to read and to be read." Lumina nodded. To be in place, to be in many places. Yes. You are displaced because you are infinite. To read a story is to live it. To be read by the story is to transcend it. The man extended his hand, and Lumina took it. In that instant, she understood. The library was not a place, but a state of being. She was no longer a seeker, but a story herself, one that had yet to be fully written. As she and the man merged into the swirling fragments, Lumina felt a peace she had never known. She was ready to read and to be read, ready to exist in many places at once. The displacement was not a curse, but a gift, a reminder that existence was never singular. And so, she became one with the library. An eternal narrative. Waiting to be opened.